Jill Jack has 41, count 'em, 41 Detroit Music Awards so far.
I wanna live like there's no tomorrow.
Audiences love her soulful voice. Whether she's singing country, rock, folk, or standards, her voice transcends genres. And she's releasing her 12th album in October.
You know, you have those people in your life and you can't remember how you met them, but you feel like you've known them your whole life. That's how I feel about Devin.
They will leave with quite a story to tell, but then again, no one does spectacle quite like the Vatican.
Devin Scillion's day job takes him all over the world, and his music brings him to your neighborhood with his band, Arizona Sun. Devin's latest album is Letter from London.
Jill Jack is amazing. I shouldn't say all this in front of her. Yeah, look at her. For a couple of years there, I thought they were just going to change the Detroit Music Awards to the Jill Jack Awards.
This musical mutual admiration society will be a Detroit duet during the Ford Fireworks broadcast.
I came from a very large family, and my mom used to put on Doris Day songs like the record, and we would basically run around the house singing Doris Day.
I was in a very musical household. My mom was constantly in like community theater musicals. She played tons of jazz and Broadway kind of music and standards in the house. My dad was the country influence, and so there was country music. I don't remember not loving music. And I don't really remember not singing music, whether it was school or church or then, you know, playing on my own. It's just, I can't imagine music not being a part of my life.
I have, 4 other siblings, so we had to fight over one stereo, and so it was a wide range from Karen Carpenter, who I loved her voice. It was pure, and I would listen to how she enunciated everything. And then my other sister would put on Mott the Hoople, and then you'd get Barry Manilow thrown in there, and then you'd get, the Isley Brothers. And so it was no different than growing up in the Detroit area. It was a huge melting pot, which I know affected my songwriting. But for me, the Eagles, I used to put a record on and tune my guitar to every song and learn how to play really solid rhythm. And I have to say that Glenn Frey is probably the reason why I have good solid rhythm. And then just every strong female artist with those big voices. I'm not a lilty singer. Actually, in choir, they always like shushed me because I was like the alto. They had like 4 altos and 600 sopranos. They'd be like, Jill, keep it down. So like Linda Ronstadt, I loved her. She just was like all out and gave it. And that's what I do on stage. If I don't really get it out, then I don't feel like I'm doing my job.
What I wanted to be more than anything when I was a kid was I wanted to be Elvis Presley. I obsessed over his music, over his movies. I learned how to curl my lip, just like I stopped calling my mom Mom and started calling her Mama. I mean, the whole thing. So Elvis's music was really important to me. The way that he sang, I'm sure that informed the way that I learned to sing too. But later on, then there were all kinds of other influences. I was really into country music, but of course I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so I had all of my friends who were into Kiss and Journey and a million of those other kind of things. It was really Gordon Lightfoot was the reason that I wanted to learn how to play the guitar, though. I loved the idea of a troubadour, somebody who sang the kind of songs that Gordon has always sung, about life on the water and damsels in distress and brave men. I really wanted to have that in my arsenal, and he's the reason that I first learned how to play the guitar.
I was born on Elvis's birthday. It would be phenomenal to meet him. But I think, as I get older, Jackson Browne, he has traveled this world with his songs. And you can see him stripped down with a guitar, you can see him with a full band. I think it would be an honor to sit down and write with him. And I keep trying to get an opening slot when he comes into town. It's gonna happen one day, but you know, I think him, and there's too many for sure. But for now, that's what pops in my head.
I suppose it would mean a lot to me to sit down and just kind of get to play guitar with Gordon Lightfoot. I thought I was going to get to open for him a couple of years ago. In fact, it was even advertised, and then his show, he had to cancel the show. That was a bit of a crusher. But I suppose I would, you know, I've been lucky enough to run a couple of I've been lucky enough to run across a couple of my heroes over the years. I have a pair of cowboy boots at home. One of them is signed by Willie Nelson, and the other one is signed by Jerry Jeff Walker. And these are two titans of my life. But I've never gotten to meet or spend time with Gordon Lightfoot, and he really is the reason I sat down with a guitar to begin with. So that would probably be it.
Well, I think keeping my career going is a huge accomplishment for me. There were times I wanted to, you know, drop out, but I didn't. And every time you get to that point, something huge happens. So one time I was telling my husband, I'm like, I'm so tired. I just don't want to do this anymore. And we got a call the next day to open up for Bob Seger at the Palace. And as I was walking up the stage, he whispered in my ear, my husband whispered in my ear, I bet you're kind of happy you didn't quit, huh? And I'm like, yeah. So that one was huge. I mean, I was flying high. I mean, hyperventilating by the time I was done. Opening for Loretta Lynn was another one. Just these people that I used to watch movies about their life to motivate me to do what I do, you know? And so here she was, her and her family come running up to me, come on in, you know, and it's just amazing. So that and just touring, going to different places where nobody knows my name, nobody knows who I am, and yet they come up to you in tears that you've affected them and they remember you and you make family wherever you go. And so I think those are good highlights for me.
Well, when I first started to learn how to play the guitar, that was, you know, that's obviously a pretty big moment when you start. And of course, like everybody else, you're really mostly trying to do it. Most guys who learn to play the guitar are trying to impress a girl somewhere. So that was, you know, that when you realize, hey, girls kind of like this, that's a big moment. The first time that I ever sang with a band on stage and heard my own music, you know, with a song that I had, that was pretty big moment. The first time you're in the studio doing an album, and it takes a long time to learn how to sing in a studio because it's very different than sitting around your house or even singing in front of a crowd. So I don't think for the first couple of albums I had a clue how to sing in the studio. When I finally learned how to sing in the studio, that felt like a really big moment to me. I did a children's album once that was astonishingly satisfying to me. I just loved doing that. That was really, really fun music to do. And I've gotten to open for some really big, people that I admire a lot, like Reba McEntire and the Oak Ridge Boys and Leanne Rimes and Toby Keith. And when you find that you're on a bill like that, that's a pretty astonishing thing too. You think of the other great cities for music in the world. Nashville is a great music city, and I love it, but it's really about one genre when you get right down to it. It's also about people who are coming from other places to Nashville to record. Detroit is all of these different genres. It's Motown, it's Aretha, which is different from Motown, it's techno, it's jazz, it's blues, it's rock, it's punk. It's so many different things. That's one thing that's astonishing. But then all the talent that came out of here that was homegrown, home created, it's overwhelming. And to feel like the smallest part of that, and I'm not anywhere close to being, I'm just one of the atoms in this huge world, but when you're around these great Detroit musicians, it is really astonishingly rich and meaningful to feel like you're a part of that family. It blows me away.
I think grit is what keeps us going. I think perseverance in the middle of even failure we just get up and we keep going. And that's how my career's been. No matter how many people might have said, you'll never make it, or you won't make it without me, or, you know, whatever. I would fall down and I'd cry and I'd get back up the next day and I'd be like, okay, what do I do now? And I really believe that came from Detroit, that energy. I really do.
Jill Jack and Devin Skillian are a Detroit duet, performing together on the Ford Fireworks Monday, June 26th, only on WDIV Local 4.